When you look at a company's organizational chart, it it projects this incredibly comforting illusion.
Oh, totally. It's like this perfectly engineered machine.
Right. You see the CEO at the top and these perfectly neat lines cascading down to the directors, the managers, the individual contributors.
Yeah, every box has a clean title.
Exactly. And every line implies this, seamless, rational flow of information. Like everything is totally under control.
It looks like a circuit board.
Yeah.
It assumes that if node A needs data, it simply retrieves it from node B through these officially approved corporate channels.
But the moment you actually step onto the office floor or log into the company Slack, that beautiful chart just totally disintegrates.
Oh, it really does. The reality of how work actually gets done is vastly more complex.
I mean, you realize pretty quickly that the official channels are mostly a facade. The business is actually being held together by this invisible, undocumented web.
Yeah, a web of favors, workarounds, and tribal knowledge.
Exactly. Knowledge that's just locked inside the heads of a few key people.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters. The formal infrastructure rarely matches the actual cognitive infrastructure of the team.
Which is why our mission today is to totally tear up that org chart. We are diving into a fantastic piece published today, July 6, 2026, on Pantheon's Perspective blog.
Such a great read.
It really is. It's an article by Nikki Dulas titled "A Field Guide to the Coworkers Who Never Document Anything." And honestly, if you're listening to this, you've probably worked with at least 3 of these people.
Or, you might actually be one of them yourself. No judgment, of course.
Right, zero judgment. Because the core premise here completely upends the usual management complaint. Dulas argues that the people who refuse to write things down aren't lazy.
Not at all. And they aren't bad employees either.
In fact, they're usually your highest performing, most indispensable people, right?
Absolutely. They just have these profound psychological and workflow barriers preventing them from translating what they know into a format anyone else can use.
So our objective today is to help you spot these specific archetypes in your own workplace and, figure out how to extract their knowledge.
Yeah, without destroying their productivity in the process.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the most extreme and arguably the most dangerous manifestation of undocumented knowledge. Dulas calls this archetype the vault.
Oh, the vault. They are the human load-bearing wall of your organization.
The load-bearing wall. I love that.
I mean, they've usually been at the company for a decade, right? They know exactly how the ancient legacy software interacts with the brand new cloud infrastructure.
Yes. And they know the labyrinthine history of why, one specific legacy client requires a totally customized billing cycle, or the true purpose of that weird folder on the server.
Exactly. They are basically the human equivalent of legacy code.
They really are, like a highly customized human search engine. They are absolutely critical to the daily operation, but completely indecipherable to an outside observer.
And management is terrified to touch them, because if they break, the whole system goes down.
Right. You can message the vault with the most obscure historical question, and they deliver the correct answer instantly, with 0 notes.
But the fatal flaw is the moment you ask them to formalize that answer into, say, a wiki page.
Oh, yeah. You get the classic line, "Oh, it's way too complicated to type out. Let me just jump on a call and show you."
What's fascinating here is the cognitive friction at play. Getting even a fraction of this written down turns individual expertise into a team resource, but it's hard for them.
Why is that? Are they just hoarding the info on purpose?
Not usually, no. The vault isn't withholding information out of malice or, job security. Their brain operates on dense, interconnected heuristics. They see the entire system at once.
So making them write it out step by step is actually painful for them.
Very. Forcing them to slow down and translate that parallel understanding into a linear sequential document feels physically agonizing. It feels like a massive waste to their cognitive resources.
Because they could just solve the problem for you in 10 seconds.
Exactly. Why write a manual when they could just click the button for you?
But you can't just let them solve it for you in 10 seconds forever. Because eventually, legacy code becomes obsolete.
Or in human terms, they take a better offer at a competitor.
Right. Or they decide to retire to Florida. And then the company completely loses access to the server.
And that brings us to the inevitable fallout of an unmanaged vault, which Dulas categorizes as the ghost.
The ghost. Basically, what happens when the vault finally leaves the building?
The ghost is simply a vault who no longer works here. And their departure triggers a very specific, visceral panic across the remaining team.
Oh, I've lived through this. It usually happens on a random Tuesday, right?
Always a Tuesday. A critical macro breaks, and the entire department suddenly realizes that the ghost held significantly more of the business together than anyone realized.
You get those panic Slack messages like, wait, the weekly data sync relies on a script running locally on Dave's old laptop. Where is Dave's laptop?
And Dave is the ghost. He's already moved on to a new role, taking his expertise with him.
Because it was never captured on paper.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the ultimate warning for your business. This is an existential vulnerability regarding corporate valuation.
Wait, really? Corporate valuation?
Absolutely. When a business relies purely on tribal knowledge, the company doesn't actually own its processes. It's merely leasing them from the employees.
Oh, wow. That is a terrifying way to frame it. Leased capabilities.
Exactly. If the intellectual property exists exclusively in the fleeting memories of the staff, the company is fundamentally hollow. Capturing knowledge early is the only way to convert an individual's expertise into a permanent asset.
So if relying on human hard drives is such a massive risk, a risk that can literally bankrupt a process, why don't well-meaning employees just write it down?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because not everyone is a vault refusing to write things down. I'm looking at Dulas's next archetype, and this is someone who is desperate to document their work. Let's talk about the I'll get to iter.
Yes, the I'll get to iter. This is the archetype most people will identify with. Their intentions are impeccable.
They mean so well. They have this pristine, color-coded task on their to-do list to, document the onboarding process. And it's been there since March.
They even started a Google Doc.
Yes. It has a bold, professional title. It has a date. And it has exactly one bullet point. Just sitting there gathering digital dust.
It's painfully relatable.
But let me challenge this for a second. Is this just the discipline problem? As a manager, looking at an empty document for 6 months feels like they just need more willpower to sit down and type.
It's a tempting conclusion, but Dulas's research points to a totally different issue. It's a structural failure, not a moral one.
So stricter, punitive deadlines won't fix it.
No, imposing a stricter deadline completely misdiagnoses the barrier. The barrier is the context-switching penalty. Documentation requires a fundamentally different cognitive state than execution.
Ah, I see. You mean shifting from the adrenaline of doing the work to the meticulousness of recording the work?
Precisely. If the expectation is, do your 50 hours of high-stakes work and then magically find a quiet hour to write a technical manual about it, the manual will never exist.
Because it gets relegated to a mythical later.
Exactly. Documentation needs to be part of their workflow, not an extra competing side quest.
Okay, so the I'll get to iter is facing a structural expectation problem. But what about when the barrier is just muscle memory?
Ah, you're talking about the fourth archetype.
Yes, the improviser. Unlike the I'll get to her, who actually knows the steps but can't find the time, the improviser couldn't list the steps if you paid them.
They are the corporate equivalent of a master chef who never measures their ingredients.
That is the perfect analogy. When you ask them to walk you through a process, they just stare off into the distance and say, I don't know, I just kind of feel it out.
Which is an absolutely terrifying phrase to hear in a compliance meeting.
Right. You can't put vibes into a standard operating procedure.
This raises an important question, though. How do you document a feeling?
Yeah, how do you extract that tacit knowledge when they aren't even consciously aware of their methodology?
You extract the guardrails. You see, managers fail with improvisers because they demand this granular 50-step chronological checklist.
And the improviser rebels because their process isn't linear.
Exactly, it's reactive. So instead of asking them how they do a task, you have to ask them what would cause the task to fail.
Oh, wow. You reverse engineer the constraints.
Yes. You don't need a massive manual. You ask them, what are the 3 red flags that make you stop and start over?
Or, what is the absolute non-negotiable state this project must be in before you pass it to the client?
Exactly. You don't document their intuition. You document the boundaries within which their intuition operates.
That makes so much sense. Even a rough outline provides enough structure so the rest of the team can follow their instincts safely.
Exactly. Without needing to clone the original improviser's brain.
Okay, so if the improviser operates entirely in silence and instinct, the next archetype is the complete opposite. If these coworkers aren't writing things down, they must be sharing information somehow, right?
They are. Out loud.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yes. Dulas calls them the oral historian.
Yeah.
Now, this person does not hoard secrets like the vault. The oral historian will happily explain exactly how the complex supply chain logistics work.
Out loud.
in the break room for 45 minutes straight.
They give you the whole backstory, including the dramatic tale of when everything went sideways back in 2021.
They provide a tremendous amount of rich contextual data. You learn exactly why the political fallout happened and why the current workaround exists.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The oral historian is actually doing the hardest part of documentation already.
Oh, absolutely. The heavy cognitive lifting of structuring a narrative, translating abstract concepts into clear examples, they are doing it.
They're explaining things clearly. The tragedy is just the medium they're choosing to use.
Exactly. Because the knowledge only lives in the acoustic space of that hallway conversation. It is entirely volatile.
Because it's not on paper. The moment the sound waves dissipate, the manual is gone.
And because of that, the entire epic story has to be repeated from scratch every single time a new person asks. They become a single point of failure masquerading as a training program.
All that is missing is just capturing it once. So what does this all mean?
Well, we've diagnosed the entire ecosystem now.
Right, we have the vault hoarding the legacy code, the ghost taking the valuation with them, I'll get to, it's our drowning in context switching.
The improviser running on vibes, and the oral historian performing these volatile monologues.
It seems impossible to fix this without totally alienating these skilled, reliable folks doing good work. How does a workplace actually implement a fix?
Well, Dulas makes it clear. The fix isn't a personality transplant. You don't need to turn the vault into a technical writer overnight.
So how does Pantheon handle it? Because they apparently build documentation right into their culture.
They do. The Pantheon solution is about hacking the environmental workflow around the employee. They achieve this through a fundamental redefinition of the word done.
Done. Because in most companies, done means the client signed off or the code shipped, right? The execution is the finish line.
Exactly. But at Pantheon, execution is only the penultimate step. A task is not legally considered done until the knowledge generated by that task is captured in the internal playbook.
Every single department has its own playbook.
Right. They have shifted documentation from a secondary post-mortem chore into the actual final deliverable.
But how does that actually play out in real time? Like if an improviser finishes a complex task, they still aren't going to want to write the entry.
That's where the systemic enforcement comes in, specifically through something called the Asker Documents rule.
Asker Documents. Okay, walk me through that.
Let's say a junior employee encounters a problem and messages the vault. The vault hops on a quick call and verbally explains the fix. Normally, the knowledge transfer dies right there.
But under the Pantheon model, the junior employee who asked the question is now responsible for writing the draft of that solution.
Exactly. The burden of documentation is shifted away from the bottleneck.
Oh, that is brilliant. So the oral historian gets to verbally explain the concept, but the listener is utilizing an AI transcription tool or taking structured notes.
Right, to convert that monologue into a permanent asset, and then the vault simply reviews the draft and approves it.
You are extracting the knowledge using their preferred communication methods, but capturing it asynchronously. It closes the gap immediately so the next person isn't held up.
It creates a self-healing operational structure. Writing things down becomes the definition of finishing the work.
Every business hits that moment where someone is out and a vital question comes up. The businesses that survive without a scramble are the ones who did the work ahead of time.
They built the safety net out of the daily workflow, rather than hoping they could weave it while falling off the tightrope.
So, as we wrap up today's deep dive, the mandate is clear. A little documentation goes a long way. You don't need to pause operations to write a flawless 100-page manual by Friday.
No, you just need to change the daily mechanism of capture.
If recognizing the improviser or the oral historian made you think of a specific coworker today, that is the exact place you should start. Grab 15 minutes with them, turn on a recording app while they tell you the history of the server crash.
But before we close, I want to leave you with an inversion of this entire concept.
Ooh, okay. Lay it on us.
We've spent this time analyzing the immense operational risk to the company when knowledge goes undocumented. But let's look at the risk to the individual. Let's look at you.
The listener.
Exactly. If you are sitting there listening to this and you realize you are the vault, if your brain is the sole repository for how your department actually functions, you probably feel highly secure.
Oh, you feel totally indispensable, like they can never fire you because they wouldn't know how to turn the lights on tomorrow.
But indispensability is a double-edged sword. If a company's true operational blueprint exists entirely in your undocumented memory, who actually owns that value?
That's a great point.
And ask yourself this. By hoarding all that knowledge yourself, Are you making yourself indispensable, or are you actually making yourself completely unpromotable?
Wait, unpromotable because nobody else can do your job.
Exactly. If nobody else possesses the blueprint to take over your desk, management can never afford to elevate you out of it.
Oh, wow. You effectively build your own ceiling out of your own secrets.
So if you want to move up, you have to write it down.
What a profound final thought. A massive thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. Go out there, look past the clean lines of the org chart, and start documenting your own brilliance. We will catch you next time.